We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die.
Hey, it's me, your boy, Encore Deluxe.
Gonna die.
I just got furloughed from my job, which I'm actually excited about. I kind of look at it as this is a little kind of late. Most people have been quarantined for like 2 or 3 weeks already. But nothing I can do about that. But since I am in quarantine finally, I look at this as an enormous opportunity to make stuff for this channel, hopefully, ideally. Finish a bunch of books, finish a bunch of movies, watch a bunch of shows, do everything I normally don't have time to do creatively. So I don't look at it as a bad thing. That being said, in these probable end times that we're in right now, I want to keep it light. For instance, Autechre, the band Autechre, is it a band? It's two guys. They put out, I think, 7 new sets to listen to, so I'm sure that's at least 7 hours worth of music. I have those Radiohead outtakes from OK Computer that I had to buy at the time. I actually went out and bought Animal Crossing, and also there's never a bad time to rewatch Nirvana the band, the show. If you haven't watched that, stop watching this and watch that.
Now Magazine is basically a feminist weekly.
I'm a feminist.
Oh, me too, absolutely.
That's what you say to kind of avoid being like.
That's what you say.
So yeah, I want to watch things, but I want to not necessarily watch mindless things, but I want to keep it light. I don't want to watch anything that's really going to bum me out or freak me out. I've been watching Frederick Wiseman documentaries on Canopy, and if you're not familiar with him, I actually just became familiar with him, but he basically takes like an occupation or a place and he goes and studies it for 6 weeks and films a documentary. It's basically like Wallpaper, and it's like the opposite of Tiger King, which I'm still recovering from. He does, like, his documentaries are called High School or State Legislation, or the one I just watched was Boxing Gym, and he basically just goes in and films a boxing gym and kind of makes a documentary out of it. It's almost like Wallpaper. It's great background noise. Those are the kind of things I want to watch until this all blows over. So I went ahead and made a list of 5 bad quarantine movies. When I say bad quarantine movies, I don't mean they're bad movies. I mean they're just kind of teetering on the brink of being way too unpleasant to deal with right now. And that doesn't mean necessarily horror movies or anything disturbing, graphic, although some of those things are on this list. Just anything that's going to fill you with dread, anything that's anxiety fueling, anything dealing with death, isolation, medical maladies, infection, disease. Some of these are more on the nose than others. I didn't want to do like a list of just go watch Contagion, the end. I wanted to be a little less direct than that, but yeah, some of these are on the nose. Number 1 is probably the most on the nose. It's It Comes at Night. This movie gets kind of a bad rap because all the horror dorks want to cry because they think it was marketed incorrectly, which I understand to an extent. It was kind of marketed incorrectly. I hate when you watch a movie and you think it's going to be one thing and then it is something else, but I like many different genres of movies, so if you tell me something's a horror movie and then it ends up being more of a thriller, that kind of doesn't ruin my day. So in the case of It Comes at Night, it's a terrible horror movie, but it's a great thriller. It's got a lot of very high stakes and like interpersonal relationships during a pandemic, what I'm going to assume is a pandemic. They get really vague on the it that comes at night, and I think that's why a lot of people get mad at this movie. But basically it boils down to it being some kind of illness that you don't want to get, and this film deals with a family basically in quarantine dealing with what happens if it comes at night. So in general, and as a Trey Edward Schultz disciple, I do think this movie does deserve another look, but not right now. You don't want to watch this one right now. It'll freak you out.
We never go out at night.
My second pick is Michael Haneke's first, I don't know if it's his first movie. I know he did a lot of TV movies. This is his first one as far as like theatrical releases. The Seventh Continent from 1989. This movie is good to go into cold. You don't want to know a lot going into this movie, but I am going to explain some of it. So if you want to go into it cold, just fast forward for just a moment here. This movie is about a family that they have kind of a mundane, boring life, so they decide they want to do something about it, and I won't give away more than that, but a simple Google search of this movie gives it away real quick. I think with or without that spoiler, I don't even know if it's necessarily a spoiler, it's a great film, but it is a bleak film. It is one of his darkest films. It's hard to say with Michael Haneke. It's kind of pick your poison thing as far as what you think is his darkest film. But this one is dark. It's bleak. The cinematography is beautiful. The very beginning, actually the first 2/3 of the movie is very aesthetically pleasing, and I like it a lot, except for there's a scene with a fish I'm not a fan of. But that last act, nobody needs that right now. I would go on the brink of not even recommending this movie, even without the coronavirus. But you definitely don't want to be watching that right now. Number 3 is Melancholia, Lars von Trier's 2011 Melancholia. If you don't know, this movie is about they discover another planet. I think it's star or planet something, some big mass. I think it's a planet that's going to collide with Earth. And Kirsten Dunst's character is just dealing with that in the way she deals with that. Very anxious, very melancholy. Just very depressed, and it's just a very realistic, in my opinion. Lars von Trier is just really good at manufacturing dread, and this movie is him at peak performance manufacturing dread. You feel like you're in the end of days. You feel like you just need to accept it. This planet's going to crash with Earth, and he really goes there in a way where I love this movie. It's a beautiful movie. I loved it when I watched it, even though it did fill me with so much dread, but I do not want to watch it again, and I sure as shit would not want to watch it during the coronavirus, a pandemic that it could be the end of the world. We don't know yet. Number 4 is The Bleeding Edge, not to be confused with the new video game that looks dumb as shit. This is a Netflix documentary about medical implanted devices, like artificial knees, artificial hips. They go through a lot of the IUDs and like skin graft type things. If you're going to be spending any time in the hospital in the near future because of coronavirus, you don't want to be thinking about these things. You don't want this at the top of your mind. I do think it's very important to stay abreast of these things. I do think it's very important to be skeptical of the medical community and keep in mind that it is a thing, it is a business. They're trying to turn a profit. And that is kind of laid bare in this documentary. I know every documentary has a slant, every documentary has a bias, but I think it's pretty safe to say that, especially the pharmaceutical industry, but it really opened my eyes to this film, that the medical implanted device industry, they show in this film, they will pass a device that is close enough to another device just to forgo the bureaucratic red tape, and people's health is on the line, and people get sick because these devices are faulty or there's something wrong that they didn't foresee, or the FDA is dragging their feet. It's a scary movie. It's a scary movie anyway, but like I said, if you're going to be spending any amount of time in the hospital because of coronavirus, yeah, you don't want these things in your mind. So while I do recommend this movie, I don't recommend it right now. Don't watch it right now. And for my final bad quarantine movie that you want to avoid right now, it's Peter and the Farm. This is on Netflix. I don't think Netflix made it because I remember paying money to watch it at one point, but it is on Netflix. It's a fantastic documentary. It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. It follows Peter, who's a farmer, clearly, organic farmer, who basically lives by himself, and he's kind of on the fringes. He's a little, like, on edge. You don't know what he's going to do. He's kind of unhinged. He's a little scary. He's a little intense. He's a little not entirely sane. And this movie, it kind of reminds me of The Lighthouse, if there was only one person. You don't know what this guy's capable of, and he's very isolated, which we are all isolated right now because of the coronavirus. But yeah, it's a good character piece on a very interesting guy, but you don't want to watch that right now. So that's all I got. Those are my 5. That's what I picked as movies, and I would recommend all of these. I would recommend every single one of these movies. The Seventh Continent, I would teeter on maybe not recommending. I do think that's a brutal film, and the final act is a little too much, even without the coronavirus. But the rest of these I would recommend. Melancholia, I'll never watch it again, but I'm glad I watched it. Peter and the Farm is fantastic. Like I said, one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Bleeding Edge is very informative. Like I said, every documentary has a bias, but I tend to lean with much of the bias of this film. And It Comes at Night. I mean, if you don't fuck with Trey Edward Schultz, you need to unsubscribe. But don't really, because I don't have that many subscribers. That being said, like this video, subscribe to it, tell 10 friends. Follow me on Instagram. I've been thinking about doing Instagram Live things. I don't know how that would pan out or what I would do, but if you want me to do that, let me know. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Auteur Deluxe, and Letterboxd at Ween, 3 E's. The extra E is for excitement. Alright, thanks. Bye.